What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my Faye Resplendent review. I'll also have a special bonus segment at the end. So Faye is a colorless infantry archer from Gen 1 and she's got Bow of Devotion as her preferred weapon. This is purely an enemy phase weapon because it only gives her stats against the ranged opponents in the enemy phase, and then it has got Quick Riposte and her weapon Refine, which does activate if she's above half health. So her weapon is rather basic and the Quick Riposte is not the greatest, but still it does help her free up her slot B skill so that she can run a lull skill or special spiral or just something else, because Faye is not the fastest archer. She's definitely a lot more of a bulky archer and her stat spread can get awkward at times, and she will definitely face competition from Norn, who's a 3-star 4-star archer who's built a lot, and she can not really have as much resistance as Faye, but she does make up for that by having a lot more speed. And speed can also function as a defensive stat where you can prevent the doubles from the enemies, and can also run stuff like null follow up. Norn is definitely one of the more popular merch projects when it comes to an archer, I guess after Young Innes, and yeah, Young Innes is also a big one. Most people do invest into him if they're looking forward to investing into an archer, and also into Jamke now after his weapon Refine. They are more of the offensive archers and they don't really function as a tank like Faye. But the thing is that functioning as a tank, especially as a slow infantry unit, is a bit more less desirable than an offensive option with one of these archers like Jamke and Young Innes, who can also pierce through the damage reduction with the use of Deadeye and such. The Resplendent stats do help her bring up to the speed, but the stat allocation matters a lot and also does the availability. But still, if you're a big Faye fan, then this is definitely a pretty nice boost, because as a tank she does appreciate every single extra stat that she can get, and her attack is not the highest, so any kind of boost to that also helps a lot. And for the people who don't really want to invest into her, she does come with Fire Sweep Bow as one of her weapons, and that is extremely rare, and she's the only unit who has got it in the game even by now. So she could be used as a fodder, but if you're a big Faye fan, then here are the builds that you can run on her. These kinds of builds can work at lower investment and lower merges as well, but because of nature of being an older unit and also wanting to function as a tank, she does appreciate any kind of extra stats that she can get from the merges as well as the Dragon Flowers. So I'm showing these at max investment, but still if you're on that road to investing into her, you can still run these builds. So Bow of Devotion is basically an enemy phase weapon, so that's why we can run enemy phase slot A skills like Distant Defense or Mere Stance. Distant Defense does go really well because she can just neutralize any kind of visible buffs of the ranged opponents, and this weapon does incentivize her to face those ranged opponents. And then a lull skill is really free in her slot B because there's really not much of an opportunity cost because of the Quick Riposte built into her weapon, and Attack Smoke does work out as a pretty nice budget option. You can also run Mere Stance 3 on her from the Divine Code section. Even Distant Defense 4 is available in Divine Codes, and so is Lull Attack Defense. So Mere Stance 3 does give you the extra attack, which is definitely really appreciated by Faye, who doesn't have the highest attack, and it also provides you with the guard effect, which is helpful for a tank, especially someone like Faye, who's gonna get doubled quite a lot. And Iceberg is pretty much the best special that she's got because of her high resistance, and then you can also run Special Spiral and Joint Drive Attack, and this is pretty much a build if you want to retaliate back with Iceberg once you have set up with the Special Spiral. So it does provide you with better one-shot potential, and you can pretty much heal up with Mystic Boost. So this is definitely a common build on a lot of enemy phase units where they can just retaliate back with their higher cooldown specials. Faye unfortunately doesn't have access to a Bread Sacred Seal or the -1 special cooldown in her weapon, so Special Spiral is pretty much one way of doing that. And if you want to ditch Bow of Devotion for another weapon, then Spendthrift Bow is pretty much her next best option. The reason being is that the -7 attack debuff that she can get on the enemy goes really well with her bulky archer role, and it can also provide her with the much needed extra attack. So it could be run with a build like this, which wants to function in both phases, and I guess at max investment you can stack up her speed. So if that's something you want to do, then Spendthrift Bow is the better way to do it than Bow of Devotion. Spendthrift Bow is just going to be giving you that -7 attack all across the board. It unfortunately does have the special penalty, but you can just run a 2 cooldown special, and then just stacking up speed with her Slot A, Slot C, and Sacred Seal. Definitely something you can only do at max investment. And you can also use her in Aether Raid's offense because of her high resistance. There are going to be a lot more ranged opponents there, and especially mages, so she could put the Bow of Devotion into work in that game mode, especially when she's being covered by a near safe tank, so they can take on the melee matchups so that Faye can focus on the ranged matchups. Now because of having Quick Riposte in her weapon, she can run Null Counter Disrupt in her slot B, which could be useful if you're facing Dazzling Staff units or Fire Sweep Bow units, but they have gone down in quantity from what I've seen in Vault of Heaven ever since Ascended Fiorm came into the game, because she did have Null Counter Disrupt, so she does kind of discourage that. Her slot B is definitely kind of open. It really depends on what you're trying to do. And then because like she's gonna get doubled a lot, you need to have the guard effect, because Bramimon, Dual Lift, all of these auto follow-up units are gonna be doubling you. So the guard effect is just so important on Faye, especially in Aether Raids, so that she doesn't get blown up by these specials. And then Joint Drive attack pretty much helps her with the damage output, and can also help her near save ally who's gonna be within 2 spaces of her. And Mystic Boost is really nice for the self-sustain, especially for a tank. And then finally, you can run her in Arena with C-Dual Infantry 4 and Lull Attack Defense, which is pretty standard, and also Joint Drive Attack. She can be used for baiting out the range opponents, especially the mages, because of her high resistance. And I'm not really the biggest fan of Deadeye on her. The reason being is that she faces the same problem as Norn, where her attack stat is not the highest, and she's also going to be functioning mainly in the enemy phase. And most damage reduction units are going to be melee, and she has no business facing the melee units. So that's why Deadeye doesn't really give you that much for the investment. And Ruptured Sky could help you, even Blue Flame could work as well. I know Deadeye is a premium special, but still it does scale off based on your damage. And it's a lot better on units who are going to be facing the melee units consistently to pierce through that damage reduction. Faye actually came into Heroes before Shadows of Valentia came out, so her implementation is a bit weird because she's an archer in Heroes, and that's physically impossible in Shadows of Valentia because archer is a male only class. So most people do make Faye into a cleric or a Pegasus Knight, and a cleric is usually the more optimal class for her. So I've pretty much tried to incorporate how she functions in Shadows of Valentia in this weapon. So Bow of Devotion does become a much better weapon with my re-refined Theorycraft, and it does have a more flexible condition that can also function in the player phase, and it's a lot easier to trigger. So she can inflict -5 attack and defense debuff on the foe during the combat, and then she can make a guaranteed follow-up attack. Again, this does work in both phases, and it's not just like the quick riposte. We have seen the auto double on Thani Weapon Refine and also on Divine Tearfang, so I don't really see any reason why Faye could not have it. And then her refined part pretty much makes her a lot more unique, similar to how she was in Shadows of Valentia. So Faye in Shadows of Valentia is pretty much the only dancer you can have in a way, because she can learn the white magic spell anew, which pretty much lets you refresh an ally for some HP cost. And for the main game, it doesn't really matter too much, but like I said, a lot of people do make her into a cleric as it's one of her optimal classes, and it can be really cool at the end game in Faye's post-game content, where she can finally get a new. So she can function as a really unique unit. So I've tried to implement that into this Weapon Refine, where if she uses a rally assist skill on a target, they can get refreshed. So she can basically function as a dancer at the same time not being a dancer like she is in Shadows of Valentia. And this also kind of incorporates her one-sided love for Alm, because she is essentially rallying up an ally, or I guess Alm, with this Weapon Refine and then refreshing him, and he's mostly an offensive unit in most of his iterations. So that's why I've kind of tried to incorporate that and kind of tried to make her unique. And this could be really good in Arena, where she can just have much better scoring than an actual dancer who has to run that low scoring dance. And this also makes her the second bow dancer after Dancer Nephne. So definitely makes her a lot more unique as a 5-star locked unit. And then she can get even more attack and defense debuff on the enemy for a total of -10 attack and defense debuff, which does help her a lot in terms of damage output, and also for taking less damage with that attack debuff. And this can function in both phases, so I guess you could consider this like a better Spendthrift essentially, in a way. So let me know in the comments what do you think about my re-refined Theorycraft, and make sure to share this video with your friends who are trying to build up Faye. I did go over a lot of the options here, and if you did enjoy, then make sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using Super Thanks or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more Faye analysis videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as function as Bow of Devotion in the player phase. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.